Ben Cambridge,
Daniel Seaton,
Nilash Padmaratnam,
Joseph Morrison. We will be critically assessing the contribution of the auditing profession to the UK economy.
For this presentation, we will be critically assessing the contribution of auditing profession to the UK economy. In order to produce a comprehensive response to this question, I will firstly be introducing what an audit is, who it's for, and why we need an audit. I will then question other members of the group on its effects on the UK economy from different perspectives, notably small or large companies, and from an internal or an external point of view. So what is an audit? Defined by the Economic Times, an audit is the inspection of or examination of various accounting books by an auditor with a follow-up physical investigation to make sure all departments are following a documented system of recording and transactions. It is presented in the annual reports by someone who is independent to the company. Now we know what an audit is, we can understand what the purpose of an audit is for. It is used to form a point of view on what is reported in the annual reports whether what is reported in the annual reports truly reflects the financial position of the company in question at that given date, at that given time. This is done by a number of roles conducted by the auditor. These roles involve, firstly, inquiring about the management of the company to understand its dynamics, operations and reports, examining the company's internal controls by watching procedures be performed, making a variety of inquiries to a wide range of people in different positions within the company itself, from oral to written questions, with confirmation on certain matters, observing the physical inventory and tangible items such as plant and equipment, and to verify accounts receivables and accounts payables with an outside third party. These roles lead to whether a company has reported any errors in their accounts or if they have detected any fraudulent goings on. There are also different types of audit reports. The first being an unqualified audit report, meaning a full and complete audit report has taken place with satisfactory results, and that the reports are fairly and appropriately presented and in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles GAAP. An unqualified, with an emphasis on matter, audit report is similar to an unqualified audit report, but it is required that the company is to supply the auditor with additional information. A qualified audit report is a suggestion based on what the company has provided. There is limited scope on information given, and/or the audit company has not kept up with GAAP principles required of them. So who is an audit for? An audit is primarily used by the shareholders or potential shareholders to the company to answer some of the questions. Is the company properly managed? Is it free from fraud? Are adequate internal controls in place? And most importantly, is the company a going concern? Companies that breach two of the following thresholds of turnover of 10.2 million, total assets over 5.1 million, and or over 50 employees have to have a compulsory audit. However, no matter how small a company is, they can volunteer to have an audit conducted. Before I inquire about how auditing contributes to the UK economy, I will first show a short interview recorded with Professor Arnold Schilder, the chairman of the IAASB, whose role in auditing is to improve standards and the quality and the uniformity of practice throughout the world.
The basic answer is quite simply being responsive and show that you take concerns very seriously. Of course, it's primarily the auditor's role to do a good audit, but others, like audit committees and regulators and investors, can also stimulate a high quality audit. You have the financial reporting supply chain, in which management and the boards provide an account of how they have dealt with the number of shareholders and lenders, because there's always uncertainty that they provide through a fair view on the accounts. It's the independent auditors coming to provide independent assurance that indeed these accounts given to a fair view, and that's a kind of financial cornerstone in society.
Hello, and I'll be talking about the contribution of the auditing profession to small and medium-sized companies in the UK. First of all, what is a small and medium-sized company? It is generally accepted that companies with a staff number of less than 250 tend to be considered small and medium-sized companies, enterprises in developed countries, and they play an enormous role in the UK economy. According to an ICAEW report in 2016, there are nearly 5.4 million small businesses in the UK, and they contribute to almost half of all private sector jobs, which is more than 12 million, and produce an annual turnover of 1.2 trillion. This accounts to 33% of private sector turnover. Therefore, how does the auditing profession impact small and medium-sized companies? One could argue that increasingly audits are having less and less of an impact on small and medium-sized companies. In recent years, the UK government has increased the threshold, like already previously suggested, for a statutory audit. The government website, gov.uk, states that for financial years that begin on or after 1st of January 2016, companies may qualify for an audit exemption if it has two of the following: annual turnover of no more than 10.2 million, assets worth no more than 5.1 million, and 50 or fewer employees on average. This meant that both annual turnover threshold and assets threshold has increased from 6.5 million and 3.26 million respectively. And this is likely to increase the effect on what I'm going to talk about the effect right now. So according to a 2010 ACCA report, this increase in thresholds, which has also occurred in Europe, has resulted in a decrease in the number of registered audit firms in the UK. So the report states that from 2003 to 2008, the UK audit capacity has reduced by more than 25%. So why is this the case? Well, because there's a belief, a quote from the 2010 ACCA report describes how perhaps understandably a vast majority of eligible businesses choose not to spend money on a voluntary audit. This is because the report talks about how it can be argued that an audit report does not add value. Expanding on this, small, medium enterprises businesses might believe that an audit report is only necessary to provide assurance to investors and lenders. Therefore, if they do not require the raising of capital, then we might feel that audit is not necessary. This is especially if the audit will be a substantial expense for the business. So small companies might feel that they could use the money better elsewhere. However, are we underestimating the impact that audit can have? The ACCA 2010 report argues that independent audit often brings real economic benefits to small and medium-sized companies through the help they offer, such as aiding effective financial management. Furthermore, a 2016 report by the ICAEW found that the 4 areas that improved the success and survival of startups and micro-businesses were plan in advance to avoid failure, make sure that IT systems represent good value for money, and good cash flow management and adapting to the pressures of running your own business. So an audit will certainly aid the business in both the second and fourth area by identifying effective and ineffective internal controls and other examples. Now let's talk about the benefits, which are mostly long-term. However, we tend to underplay the long-term impacts that the audit profession has on small and medium-sized businesses. Many student accountants take audit as part of their training, and this provides them with important skills and knowledge that will benefit them later on in their careers. For example, they learn the important skill of how to apply professional skepticism in their work. Considering also that 45% of ACCA members at some point in their lives would work for a small and medium-sized company in a report published by them in 2013. This means that limiting the chances training accountants get to training these valuable skills will have a detrimental impact on the long-term growth of the UK economy. If it stops these training accountants from becoming the complete financial professionals, which is what small and medium-sized companies need, then this will be a disadvantage. As stated by the 2012 HCCA report, a small business only has distinct functions and cannot be resourced and formalized. Therefore, the auditing profession still plays an important role, but this could decrease in the future if the trend of more and more small and medium-sized companies deciding not to have audit because, for example, the threshold increased by the government or voluntarily because they feel that the disadvantages outweigh the advantages, where in fact this might not be the case.
So now I'm going to talk to you about the contribution that the auditing profession plays to large companies within the UK economy. First and foremost, we have to consider what makes a large company. A company is considered large within the UK when it has an annual turnover of over £36 million, an asset figure on the balance sheet of over £80 million, and over 250 employees. Within the UK, there are only 7,000 large companies, which is only 0.13% of the number of companies within the UK. However, the annual turnover contributed by these companies equates to £2.036 trillion, which makes over 50% of the annual turnover within the whole of the UK economy. Therefore, they play a massive role within the UK economy. Large companies don't qualify for any audit exemptions and are required to fulfil the full accounts, as opposed to small and medium-sized companies which only have to file abbreviated accounts with Companies House. The contribution of auditing to large companies is very significant, as it ensures that high levels of financial integrity have been followed by an independent auditor coming to look at the accounts of the company. This professionally accredited information is perceived as being more reliable and relevant, and therefore plays a massive role in the financial statements of large companies. Now, how does this affect the economy? The contribution of audit and how it affects the economy is rather large and beneficial to large companies. It provides a level of security for investors looking to invest within large companies within the economy, in which investors' funds are vital for capital formation. The contribution of audit and the effect on the economy is quite considerable, as it provides a level of security for potential investors in large companies, and this money from the investor, these investor funds are vital for capital formation, supporting the economic growth of the individual firms. Introducing this element of confidence and financial integrity within the financial information encourages increased participation with market investments, which allows firms to accumulate greater capital to fund innovation and infrastructure, both of which promote business development and increased job security, which all lead to the vital factors contributing to growth in the UK economy. However, with audit has faced some issues with large companies within the economy. Following the financial crisis in 2008, the economy suffered a massive decrease in long-term investment strategies across the whole economy, which still plays effects now. And this conflicts with the purpose of audit, as the audit profession takes a long-term approach to economic growth. This has instilled a huge amount of pressure on hired managers within large companies to maximise short-term results. However, this short-termism approach stifles innovation and the longevity of organisations, leading to potential long-term issues down the line for the whole economy, hindering economic growth. Currently, the auditing profession faces the issue to increase and enhance the relevance and reliability of external audits. which is critical to rebuild confidence within the market and encourage providers of capital and investors to return to long-term investment strategies, therefore leading to a long-term growth strategy within the whole economy. Overall, the auditing profession plays a considerable role within the growth and development of large companies, and therefore the growth and development of the whole economy in general, as they contribute to such a large percentage of the economy. This has a significant impact on the whole of the UK in general.
Auditing. There are two types of audits, previously discussed by my colleagues. One is external and the other one is an internal audit. The external audit mainly focuses on financial statements and is an assurance. So it looks into the past of what has been done during the fiscal year and provides verification and assurance of the company's financial statements. Internal audit, on the other hand, is also an assurance, but it focuses more on the organisational, operational and the management of the company, therefore looking into the future of the company. The main differences, as I said, is an external focus on the financial side of it, whereas the internal looks into the future and looks at the operational, management and the organisation of the company. External auditors are are independent from the company itself, and they come in just to check everything out, whereas the internal auditors are normally employed by the company through the managers. External audits are mainly done about once or twice a year, whereas the internal one, because they're employed, is a continuous process and always looks to improve the company as a whole. The auditor, for an internal auditor, will give their reports to the relevant managers, since they're the ones that will be most keen on seeing how the company can improve, whereas shareholders only care about money and their investment. The internal audits are not published publicly, since the public won't be interested in that. As I said, most of them would be investors or potential investors, and they wouldn't be too concerned about how the operations are run. They're more important about the financial figures. The internal auditor can also contribute to the success of the company, since they overlook projects who can chime in on improvements which managers may not have seen, since they focus on the risk of it. Now, you may think internal auditors don't benefit the UK economy, since they only focus on their own companies. However, they have a significant impact on the UK economy. 9 out of 10 startups in the UK fell within 5 years, and most of that is due to unseen risk. And an internal auditor, their role is to look at the risks and see how it can be avoided. 80% of UK GDP comes from the service industry, and that involves working with the public and people, and that is a fast-moving, highly competitive, dynamic environment for businesses. Therefore, internal audits look around for such as technological processes, the competitors, and see how they could avoid risk, which is what costs most of startup companies and leads to their failure. This whole thing has a big impact, as I've said, because a decrease in failed startups will change the GDP. Even if it's 0.5% or 1%, in total that will have massive impact on the UK economy and other countries around that work with the import and exports of the company.